All right, football fans, welcome to a Thursday episode of the Call Sheet Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Smith, here at the Fans First Sports Network. It's Thursday, which means we do our State of the Franchise show. And I can think of no better team to focus on this week than a team that's made a lot of news in the last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I have a great guest with me today who's been at minicamp to see things firsthand. He's going to break things down for us. Pittsburgh Steelers beat writer Nick Farabaugh. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Kevin. I really do appreciate the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you taking the time. You are a busy man. Nick and I first kind of crossed paths about a decade ago when we were both writing some articles for the old Behind the Steel Curtain. You've come a long way since then. Now a beat writer with PennLive. Tell us about your journey real quick.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think it was a while ago. I think I started writing in 2017, 2018, and then just kind of progressively got more serious. Went to college, covered Pitt, high school, did all of that stuff, and then Steelers came up, man. So I've been on the Steelers beat. This will be my 5th year now. Actually being in the building. This is like the early beginnings of that. It's been pretty awesome, and just getting to see the behind the scenes of an NFL team every day. It's a privilege, but it's really cool to see it because you kind of when you're a teenager and you're a kid, you kind of dream about seeing it or at least being on an NFL team or whatever, covering one. It's been pretty cool being able to do it as my full-time job.
Oh, I'm sure it has. Nick, I'm a lot older than you. I've been a Steelers fan for a long time. And I still get, when I go to St. Vincent for training camp, I still get kind of goosebumps and just the feel of NFL football at the highest level must be fascinating. So congratulations on that journey. And I'm sure you got a heck of a career to come.
Yeah, man. I hope so. And you are right. I mean, to me, you mentioned Latrobe. I love Latrobe. It's one of those like football sanctuary places, I feel like, right? It's just got that different type of energy. The Steelers practice facility, it's cool. It's cool. It's not, I think, up to snuff like some other facilities are, but Latrobe, I think, that is a cool tradition to have because most teams do not go away for training camp anymore. The fact that the Steelers still go out there, you have fans there. It's on this quaint little campus in the middle of Pennsylvania. I think that's obvious. That's like obviously really cool, and something teams used to do. I'm glad the Steelers have that at least as a tradition. They still do.
Yeah, it's got that Field of Dreams vibe
Yep.
about it. You come over the hill, you see the St. Vincent carved into the hedges. Pretty cool stuff. So you've been at minicamp all week covering the team. I mean, let's not bury the lead here. Aaron Rodgers is obviously at the facility, not doing much right now. But what's the vibe like with him around? Does it feel as though there's a little bit more, I don't know, optimism?
Yeah, I do think that there is some optimism. And listen, I think if you were a player and you said it didn't feel different, you'd be lying to yourself. I don't care what you thought of Aaron Rodgers last year. Um, he is a 4-time MVP. He's a Super Bowl winner. It feels different than when Mason Rudolph is running the gun, right? Like it just does. And so there's definitely some optimism there. I think these guys, a little bit starstruck the fact that Aaron Rodgers is sitting next to them in the meeting room, but I think that's reasonable to be had when some of these guys were 5 years old when this dude was drafted. Like, I mean, Will Howard was 3 when Aaron Rodgers was drafted in 2005. Like, that's how old he was. And so these guys have been watching this guy their entire lives, their entire childhood. Some of them idolized him. And I think that in general, as players as well, guys like DK Metcalf and Jalen Warren and Pat Fryman, they're really excited to play with him because I think that they think that he can unlock some things in their offense. Maybe they could hit some more shots in the middle of the field, even though Rodgers isn't, notorious for doing the middle of the field. He's done that more than Russell Wilson, Justin Fields over his career. So that's something to say. I think Arthur Smith, talking to him today, you got the vibe that he's pretty excited to kind of dive into this and find that middle ground between what Rodgers likes and his offense and kind of looking at the LaFleur concepts from when he was with Green Bay. And there's a lot of different things. So there's going to be a lot of work, a lot of leg work and kind of studious work over this break as well after this week, kind of deciding and tinkering how do we fit this best to Aaron? Who do we need to go out and get to acquire to maybe add to this room the wide receiver room specifically to help Aaron, but all of that. I mean, there's just a different vibe now that Aaron's here. He is Aaron Rodgers, and I think he carries himself like he's Aaron Rodgers, and I think that makes things feel different by default.
Right. You talk about his presence. Did you catch much of his initial press conference on Tuesday? It seemed like he kind of hit all the right tones. Is that sort of a fair read on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I was standing there right as he was talking.
Yeah.
And so, I do think Aaron did a good job, right? I mean, listen, Aaron's pressers over the years have been marred with he's been an interesting listen at times, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's pot shots thrown at guys like Mike Williams in the red line comment last year, or when he was on Pat McAfee in April, I mean, just blasting Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets organization for flying him out to New York and then telling him they're cutting him. We've seen this happen before. I think this was a thing where, he said, you know what? I'm here. This is a good vibe. There's no reason to start anything, right? There's nothing. And he doesn't really have anything to be upset about. Like, I think, he clearly that he came to Pittsburgh because of Mike Tomlin. I think that is very clear. That is the reason he was with Pittsburgh. All the communication between the Steelers organization and Aaron Rodgers basically went through Mike Tomlin with Aaron Rodgers. And that's a big reason why I think the respect he has for Mike Tomlin, he reveres the man. I think that is a different type of thing compared to Robert Saleh. I like Robert Saleh as a coach, but he's a first-time head coach. He's not Mike Tomlin. And I think Mike Tomlin has that pull in Aaron's mind a little bit more. I also think, hitting the kind of the right notes, saying he'll mentor Will Howard. He wants to pass down his knowledge. Why is he playing? Because he wants to give back to the game. He wants to have fun and he wants to win. Basic things like that. When you're 41, going to turn into 42, that's the type of mentality you need to have to be successful. So he hit the right notes there. Let's see how this continues to go throughout the process. But I do think Aaron at least hit all the right tones to start.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned Arthur Smith and his offense, and you're right. You're going from a guy who threw the ball more than just about any quarterback in the league last year versus a coordinator who had the fourth most rushing attempts in the league. And I saw Arthur Smith's quote about, well, we didn't bring him here to run the wishbone. That was a great quote. But I saw a tweet that you put out on Wednesday where you said that the Steelers have reiterated that Calvin Austin is wide receiver 2. Do you think that the Steelers really believe that they're going to be okay with Calvin Austin at wide receiver 2, or do you think there's a move that's forthcoming at some point?
I think they make a move, but is it going to shake the tree away from Calvin? I think it's going to be the question.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if you saw Keenan Allen basically say he didn't want to come to Pittsburgh today.
I didn't. I was disappointed. I thought he'd be a great fit.
Yeah, right. I thought, Keenan Allen would have been interesting, even if he has cementing issues at this point in his career. I do think you saw the productivity last year. Somehow, despite the lack of athleticism, he was still open on tape a decent amount. And I was like, oh, that could work. So I don't know whether the Steelers are going to look at an Amari Cooper, or are they going to look at Gabe Davis? Are they going to try and trade for somebody? I think they're going to explore the market, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But we'll see if that guy is going to be significant enough to knock Calvin Austin out of there, or if it's just going to be one of these wide receiver 3 types. So there's kind of a Marooting type of kind of a committee almost in that role. And I mean, that could be stronger than last year, right? If you trust Calvin Austin, you trust that new player is a different style than Calvin. You add in Roman Wilson, Robert Woods, you can kind of mix and match kind of your styles based on what you need on each down, gameplay, matchup specific things. You can do different things there. So do I expect them to be the wide receiver 2? I mean, probably not right now. I mean, I think that they're probably going to add somebody, whether it's Gabe Davis or Amari Cooper or someone else like a Romeo Doubs or someone like that. I do expect someone to come in, and I think that would knock Calvin out of the wide receiver 2 role. But I think the way that they talked about Calvin made it abundantly clear that how high they are on him. They really like him. I mean, they're high enough, in my opinion, to give him a long-term contract. Like, I think that's potentially where this is going with him. So we'll see. But I do think Calvin's going to have a significant role in this offense, whether he is that wide receiver 2 or not. So certainly stock up for him. He's having a good spring, so good for him.
Good to hear. That'd be interesting because a lot of high-profile Steeler wide receivers have not gotten second contracts. So that would be interesting if they did actually extend him. You mentioned to me before we went on air here that on Wednesday there were some guys making plays out on the practice field. Who jumped out for you?
Yeah, I thought Darnell Washington did. He's a little lighter. I think last year, even though he won't admit, he was probably playing like at 305, which is
Whew.
crazy to think
Yeah.
about. Like he and Broderick Jones are like the same weight, which is just insane for him to move as he does. I think now he's probably around 280, 275. He's a little lighter. Doesn't mean he's going to be any less physically imposing at the line of scrimmage, but it just looks different when he goes down the field on seam routes. A little bit different when he goes in and out of his breaks. So he had a really good day today as a receiver. Will Howard probably had his most consistent day. He's been as any, I think, rookie quarterback would be over their first 10 practices or so, just a roller coaster of a ride. Sometimes it looks too fast for him. Sometimes he looks in control. I thought today he looked in control. He led a 2-minute drill right down the field for a touchdown. That was really encouraging. And then the other guy, I'm not sure I had the expectations for him to do this, but the first 2 days I've seen of Juan Thornhill, have just been very impressive. He has been all over the kind of map. He said today, I think that he was playing slot, safety, strong and free. And they're just kind of using him wherever they can on any play. He's been on the ball a ton. He's been making plays in man coverage. He has been doing it all. So he showed up knowing the playbook and is playing fast and free. And I think that's really good. He was hurt a lot last year too. So when you saw a lot of his tackling issues, he said a lot of that was his injuries piling up. So now that he's healthy, he looks way more like the Kansas City version. Let's see if this can continue and the Steelers can get that. Because if they can get a lot more out of him than Cleveland did, they could have a really potent 3 safety package. And I think that really could allow them to open up Minkah Fitzpatrick, who also has had a really good start to this mini camp. I don't really need to see Mink do well, but 5 picks in 2 days I think is noteworthy when you're talking about wanting to get back to Minkah ball.
Yeah, unlocking Minkah Fitzpatrick is absolutely one of the keys to success on defense. You mentioned Broderick Jones, the slim down version. I noted last year when I was at training camp that Broderick Jones was out there on a 95-degree August day wearing basically like a warm-up suit under his pads, probably trying to shed weight because he didn't show up in great shape and he didn't have a great year. If there's one guy on the O-line who needs to have a great year this year, it's Broderick Jones because he'll have Aaron Rodgers back on that left side. He has slimmed down a little bit. Have you noticed anything from Broderick Jones in making that transition to the left-hand side?
Yeah, I think he's still retraining memory there to get back to the left side because he's been so right dominant over the past few seasons. So I think that's an adjustment. So things don't look completely natural. He's still kind of rewiring his body to get there. He definitely looks more athletic. I think there's no question about that. He's way more cut. And there's a play last week where, at OTAs where they got on a screen and he just like ran in front of Pat Fryermuth and was like running tat for tat with him. And I was like, whoa, okay, Broderick. But he's probably a little too late right now. So my guess is around the season, he'll probably be around 310 or so. But yeah, movement skills are A1 right now. Great movement skills. But we'll kind of see when the pads pop on. But I think right now it's more about retraining muscle memory, make sure the playbook consistency is down, because last year he had gaffes where it seems like he didn't know the assignment he was doing on a given play. So just basic things like that, I think, is where he will kind of take the step. I haven't noticed him, making a bad read or making a bad kind of play after the snap where it's like, oh, you weren't supposed to do that, Broderick. Like you weren't supposed to pull on that. He seems to have that down, which I think is a good step. That's a good basic step for Broderick right now, considering his season last year.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the rookies? Everybody wants to hear about them. I know that, Derek Harmon and Caleb Johnson are the 2 guys that I'm really interested in, Caleb Johnson in particular, just because I think he's a great fit for this offense. And again, we're talking about mini camp. We're talking about practice in shorts. Obviously, you can't read too much into anything, but have the rookies done anything to impress you, cause concern, et cetera?
I've been extremely impressed by Caleb Johnson's attention to detail, his ability to ask questions, his ability to go and admit a weakness and attack it with a fervor. I think that's been the one thing. His ability to kind of take on pass pro, which he self-admitted was an issue, and just ask Jalen Warren, ask Eddie Faulkner after every single rep for advice, and then learn that and do it in a rep, right? Eddie Faulkner will say one thing, and Caleb will be like, okay, I'll do that. And then the next rep, he does it. You know what I mean? Really, if he says it twice, it doesn't get it doesn't happen again. Like he kind of puts it to memory and things happen. There's a lot of unnatural movement I think that Caleb has in pass pro where he kind of has, he kind of wants to take the easy way out, as I say it, because he likes to cut guys and he kind of goes and just tries and does that. So the hand usage and kind of getting your hips engaged part is new to him, but he is kind of retraining his brain right now. And he's doing a really good job of that. So I've been impressed by that. Also softer hands than I thought he had. He's been pretty good as a receiver from what I've seen. Jack Sawyer looks like he is a kind of high effort player. I think that's always good to see. His motor runs like 120 always. So I like that. Harmon is kind of flocking to Cam Hayward. I think that's a good thing. You always want to see. But it's hard to kind of evaluate the rookies here because they're also not doing a ton. But Caleb Johnson's probably been the most impressive to me. We'll see more about Derek Harmon. People ask, how's he look? Well, when no pads, good luck evaluating defensive linemen. You just really can't very often. So can't tell you that much about him or Jack Sawyer even. But I can tell you, Caleb Johnson's been very good. And I think he's going to have a significant role this year. He's got the right mindset. He's wired right to fix pass pro, turn it into a strength. And if he does that, I mean, there's not a lot keeping him off the football field on all 3 downs.
Yeah. And then what you had to say about Will Howard at the beginning of the show is encouraging as well, because even though you say, okay, fine, it's like skelly work, it's 7-on-7, whatever, to finish a drive for a rookie, I think is a big deal. Learning how to finish, learning how to, follow through on a task, whatever it might be at the highest level, just to build the confidence that you can do it, even if it's in shorts, I think is a big thing. So that's encouraging to hear what you said about Howard.
Yeah, the game clearly is still kind of coming to him. And some things are too fast for him when the rotations and the disguises come up and there's a blitz that he didn't expect. He looks like, whoa, where'd that come from? You can still tell he's a 6-round rookie, but I think he's starting to pick up a little bit on the tips and tricks. His command of a huddle has gotten a lot better. He's throwing with anticipation now and kind of understanding where coverages are going to be and where he expects things to open up. So things are slowing down for him. Let's see how it goes. But, I'm not expecting him to be anything other than inconsistent right now. He's a rookie quarterback. Every rookie quarterback should struggle probably a little bit during these first practices. It's just different. Speed is so different at the NFL level. Even when you were a national championship winner and you played in the Big Ten and you faced SEC teams, it's so different. It is so different.
Any word about what's going on with TJ Watt? I mean, I don't think that anybody's really in panic mode as far as this goes. And I think most people believe that a deal will get done. But I mean, is there any buzz concerning his situation?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard much in terms of, they do want to get this deal done. They're talking, of course. So TJ's told them that. Steelers have told him that. He probably wants Myles Garrett money. That's $40 million per year, $83 million guaranteed. He got a mega deal. Myles Garrett did. And I think that really flustered the market. I think if this had stayed, around $36 million, which is around where Max Crosby got, this deal's probably already done. It wasn't a crazy guarantee structure. But now you got kind of Aiden Hutchinson, Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson, TJ Watt kind of garnering for jockey position here to see who can get, the most. And so where does that kind of final number come in? I mean, this one has all the makings to me of something that, lasts until September and they get done like 3 days before the season. Is TJ going to be at training camp? I think is the big thing. Even if it's a hold in, is he going to be there at training camp? I do think that's going to be a big thing. I know the NFLPA has told players this year that if they're not happy with their contract, they've started to say just hold out instead because teams were complaining about hold-ins and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see. But I do think this gets done before the season. I don't think there's any kind of trepidation about his future or anything. It's just going to kind of be, can they get it done before the other ones? Because, I mean, Michael Parsons comes in $42 million. TJ's going to want more money, not necessarily $42 million, but he's going to want between that. And so they need to get this done before more contracts come in and could potentially drive the price up more.
It's I guess because I've seen the numbers rise progressively, I shouldn't be shocked. But still, when you throw out numbers like $42 million for an edge rusher, I still can't wrap my brain around it, man. It is, I mean, good for these guys, but it's still mind-boggling to me.
It is. And I mean, TJ's last contract was 27 per year. He's going to get a significant pay raise on that. It's just the inflation of the league. I mean, edge rushers are getting paid like quarterbacks now. It's insane. But it is what it is. And if the Steelers want TJ Watt to come back, and they very much do, that's what the market's going to say. And so they wanted him on a hometown discount. And honestly, they should have gotten it done last offseason. I mean, that's legit how you do it. So if they wanted him for $33 million per year, that would have been last year. Now it's 40. That's how it goes.
Wow. Huh. All right. So Nick, I'm going to get you out of here on this question. Let's kind of think big picture. Again, very early. It's June. It's very hard to project what things are going to look like in December, obviously. But given the roster that this team has assembled, they've got pretty much the entire coaching staff back. I mean, there's a lot of continuity, obviously a huge change at the quarterback position, but I think it's fair to say most people believe they've upgraded the quarterback position. What do you think is a reasonable expectation for this Pittsburgh Steelers team?
I mean, I think reasonable is at least a repeat performance of last year. I think that's fair. Listen, I think a lot of people have said that this roster is worse, but I'm not sure I see that. I think that they're better at wide receiver. Even if it's an issue, I do think that room's a little better. The O-line should be better theoretically. They're young. They're growing. D-line, they had a ton of resources poured in there. Even if you don't love the corner room because of what they did and kind of didn't get a long-term answer, Slay is better than Dante Jackson. I mean, that's pretty clear to me. So, I mean, I think the roster is probably better than it was last year. And I think that does matter. And so, with Rodgers, I mean, where does solid quarterback play get you? I think is the question. So realistically, I mean, if you are the Steelers, the upside option would be you're 10-7, 11-6, and you win a wild card round game, and that's cool. You break your playoff drought. I don't see why that's unreasonable. The Steelers should have that. They've kind of gone in enough this year with the Slay moves, the Metcalf move, bringing in Rodgers to where the expectation should be no less than winning a playoff game. Now, are they going to win a playoff game? I think if your expectation is 9-8 and they're out in the wild card, that's probably would be my prediction too. I wouldn't go against that. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers or you're a fan of this team and you look at this right now, even in the AFC, you got to think playoff win this year. You got to. The moves they made are short-term moves in regards. They obviously have set themselves up as well for next year when they are theoretically going to go up and get their quarterback in 2026. But this year, the goal should absolutely be to win a playoff game. It is past due time. The Steelers franchise is a franchise that has a higher standard. It just is what it is. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's no offense to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not the Jacksonville Jaguars in terms of their kind of expectations. And so that is exactly kind of the expectation I would have here. But I think realistically, you think, 10-7 wild card berth, and hopefully you get a playoff win. That's where I would put a reasonable expectation for them at.
Right. Okay, I lied. I'm going to ask you one more quick question because you brought up the quarterback in 2026. Do you think, and you might not be able to answer this question, but I mean, we can just speculate, right? Do you think that Pittsburgh's starting quarterback in 2026 is on the roster right now?
No, I do not. I think they're going to draft a rookie, and that'll probably be the start next year. And they might. I think they're going to trade up for somebody. I think that their war chest of compensatory picks maybe isn't to necessarily do the trade up, but have enough picks to still fill out their roster holes next year when they kind of need to fill in a lot of those holes so they can trade up and go get that guy. So I do think they're going to draft somebody next year. I think that's going to be your starter. So I think it's going to be a new era next year. This is kind of the short-term go in, and let's see if they can find some magic with Aaron Rodgers, a la 09 Favre. That's kind of the thought process, I think, behind this. And then next year, I think it's kind of all hands on deck towards the NFL draft.
Well, with the draft being in Pittsburgh, man, that will not be boring. So
no, it won't. No, it won't.
Nick, congratulations again on what you're doing. You're doing a great job. I love following you on Twitter. You post really great stuff there. Keep up the great work, and thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, that is our Thursday State of the Franchise episode on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Join me tomorrow. We wrap up the week with our hot route conversation. My buddy Pez and I talking about football and life. That is always a fun conversation to start your weekend. So for Nick Farabaugh, this is Kevin Smith. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.